And we are live. How are
Hey,
you doing, Josh?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. New year, new goals, new
Yeah,
perspective. I feel like the beginning of the new year is always like high spirits,
yeah,
It's like you're getting back into a new routine, but like you have a new focus, you know what exactly you want to accomplish for this year because of things that you didn't get done last year. So
yeah.
yeah, it's always a good time. Holidays are done, so it's like you're coming off of some very good events, whether it's eating with family and stuff like that. So yeah, always a good time.
I always find that really busy people, the New Year's is a big thing for guys like us because it's like, when do you take 5 days off ever?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
year, right? You just don't do it. I
yeah,
don't even take my full weekends off.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
the last, I guess 6 weeks now. I think I've taken 3 days off. One of them being Christmas, one of them being the day after Boxing Day with my son. Boxing Day we were taping.
Oh wow.
Yeah, New Year's Eve I was there to for the ball drop. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
But I mean, I still consider that time off.
Yeah.
You know what? Just like you're saying, as you come into January, you've had some like woo-saw time. You've spent
Yeah.
time with people that you love. Maybe sometimes when you're busy, you don't do enough of that, and then it does really give you that new perspective for the year. And you're like, you know what?
100%.
I've had a few good nights sleeps. Let's get after it, right? Yeah.
100%. I feel like that's such a blue collar thing, the like not taking any days off. And it's not something that's like, oh, I'm like on the grind on the hustle. In some perspectives, I think it is, but it's more
Yeah.
just like something that's built in where like, for example, like the job that I just finished where I asked you questions about like skim coding.
Yep.
There's 2 nights where I was so the wall that I had started off, horrible job for the first coat because the guy who was there doing the flooring gave me advice on how to do it. So
Yep.
I had to completely do it all over again and start off with a new way of like putting on the plaster. And 2 nights, the first night was just sanding down that first coat, which was brutal because of how thick the wall was. I
Yeah.
ended up staying up till like 5 a.m. in the morning. And
Yeah.
I went to bed. I think I took like a 2 hour nap and it was like cutting close because she was moving into the house, bringing furniture in. So there was a deadline of like,
Ooh.
you have to be done so I can move my stuff in. My family's also coming as well. So that night I took like 2, 3 hours of sleep, and then I just woke up, just went back at it. I had to put the second coat on so it can dry for me to sand it the next morning.
Yep.
And the next day I ended up staying up till again, I think like 6 a.m. in the morning, just having to wait for this coat to dry off so I can sand it so it'll be ready for her to come take a look at
Jesus.
it. And then you
Yeah.
got to prime, then you got to put the coat on it. Oh, it was brutal. But like that whole like idea of like not taking days off, it's not even like I want to just like get all these hours. It's more or less like you're in the zone. You can't like
Yeah.
break out of it. You have to get it done, or else you just feel like incomplete in some sense. Like, yeah,
There's this like, there are two types of people when you talk about projects where there's the type of person that is like, nothing finishes on time. And then there's the
mm,
type of person that's like, we don't fucking hand things over late.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And they both have their ups and downs, right? Like I envy the guys that it's crunch time, it's 4 o'clock, and they're like, I'm going home to see my kids. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean? And I'll be back on Monday if it's Friday or whatever, right?
yeah.
But I also I don't think those guys get that like sense of achievement of like, I always talk about this. My cousin and I, he's got an agricultural fencing company.
Okay.
And there was, I don't know how long this thing was supposed to take, but we got it done in like 6 days. And at the end of the Avengers, when they're all like killed from the battle and they're like, you want to go get some shawarma, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I,
yeah.
I took that clip, and then the next clip in that is just me and him sitting in his front seat, just like mucking shawarmas.
Yeah, yeah.
And that feeling of like we did it is, I don't think enough people get that. You
Yeah,
know what I
it's such
mean?
a good feeling. It's such like the amount of times once that wall was done, like I would go and start. I think I had like some little touch ups to do. I'd
Of
go do a
course,
touch
yeah.
up, and then my brain just went to like, oh, I can't believe I just took like 2 nights, no sleep, and finally finished this wall. So I go downstairs, just look at the wall, and be like, my God, I can't believe I just did that. But like I'm so amazed and like so proud of myself for like actually getting it done and like
Yeah.
learning the new ways of like how to do skip coding and stuff like that. So it's brutal, but it's so rewarding at the end. It's like you have to get it done. I have even some clients where like I'll be doing a job and I'm like, I promise I'll get it done for like today or like I want to get it done for tomorrow. And I'm always bad with that. I usually
Yeah.
overshoot how much time it's going to take me to finish something. And they'll be standing there. And luckily, most of my clients have been a lot of family friends just because I am new,
Yeah,
just starting
totally.
out. So they're little bit more understanding when I'm there like 9 p.m. They're like, Josh, you need to get home now. But I'm like, I
Yeah.
know I need to get this done. You know, it's like I have to finish it or else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn how to not tell everyone what my expectations for me are, right?
Yes, that's what it
Because I'm
is.
like, I'm gonna build this whole fucking house today.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's the energy that I bring to site some days. Or like we're gonna do enormous things today. But you really do kind of have to try and build a timeline that's like not quite half days, but like
Mhm.
8 hour days, what makes sense, and
Yeah,
hand that over to the customer.
yeah.
Because when you're 3 days ahead, it's very different than being 30 seconds behind.
Right.
You,
Oh,
you know what I mean? And
yeah,
especially when you've got that kind of energy and you're like, we're finishing this today, and then you've told them that you're gonna and you don't, that hits you harder than the whole thing failing anyways, right?
yeah,
And it's ridiculous because in the grand scheme of things, you are doing double time and you are getting shit done, but
yeah,
it's like you just hold it way up here. But that's what makes you successful, I
yeah.
think, right? Like it pulls you away from everyone else. Yeah.
Exactly. And it forces you to work twice as hard because you're like, this is the expectation I set out for myself. So it's like
Yeah.
I have to hit it. If I don't, then like I feel down on myself. And then the clients too, the funny thing is like the clients are always usually pretty understanding. Like, yeah, don't worry about it. Like, things happen. Like you just come back tomorrow and you keep it. But I'm like, no, I said I was gonna get it done today. I need to get the majority of it, or at least to a level where I feel like I'm okay walking away from this. So
Yeah.
I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah, when you show up for a Sunday and they're like, "You're back again, hey? You're not taking any days off this week," and then it's like 9 o'clock, and they come downstairs and they're like, "Listen,
Yeah.
next week's in a few hours.
Yeah.
You should go get some sleep." And you're like, "Oh, I didn't hit what I wanted," and they look around and they go, "Dude, this is nuts! Like you're killing it. Go
Yeah.
home."
But
Uh,
I mean, most of these clients appreciate it too because they
for
see that
sure.
they see the work ethic and they're like, oh, this guy's someone I can trust to like get the job done because you can see it in him. Like he doesn't want to leave unless it's done. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And those are also the people that when everyone's sitting around telling these horror stories of contractors, they go, it's not all of them. You know
yeah,
what I mean? We had a guy here that was nuts.
yeah,
And it's nice to have that out there because there are a few of us that put the time in, right? And
yeah,
it's almost like you get bunched in with that until you've kind of built a reputation for yourself, which it sounds like you're kind of in the midst of building a hell of a reputation for yourself.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's as soon as I kind of see that grind out of somebody, I'm like, okay, I need to spend some time talking to this person.
yeah, yes,
uh I want you to tell me about this 100-day thing. So for everybody listening, I do Sober October every year. And anytime that I get some sort of like a tingle that somebody else is doing something like that, I always want to talk about it.
yeah. So I'm trying to think what even like spurred this in the moment. I've always had this like even starting my business. I'm always I guess I would say I'm spiritual, but I'm also very like superstitious in a sense.
For sure.
And when I started this business, I kept getting this like 2-2 was always a sign for me of like this is something you're on like the right path or whatever. And like I know there's like this talk of like angel numbers and stuff like that. And I was thinking to myself, like when I had first started the business, I was like, I hope I kept getting these signs of like I'll go and buy something and like maybe it comes up like $22 or like I look at the
Yeah.
time, it's like 22 or like someone calls me and it's like 22. And I remember this first job that I took, it was out in Glencoe and I was actually trying to back out of it because at the time I was living in London.
Okay.
I was there for school and this guy asked me to come and paint. He had just bought a property where he had it's like a 4 unit apartment, and he had these older ladies that were living there. And the basement apartment's like brick, but it also has this like wood batten board on there as well. And he said
Yeah.
that the neighbor was saying it was like really dark. He wanted to brighten up the place, and I'd never done any sort of like painting on top of like batten board,
Yep.
so I didn't know how that was gonna look. Cause I know if the finishing on the board was like oil based, it's not going to show through as well. And I had never dealt with something
Yeah.
like that
You
before.
never
So
know. Yeah.
exactly. And I hate, promising people like I can do things, but that's also another thing of like this imposter syndrome of like you have to say yes in order to learn and then
Yeah.
know, okay, I can actually accomplish this. But anyway, to cut a story short, I was on the phone with a pastor of mine, and he had called me, and I think the time was like 22, and I was like, this is crazy. And this is around the time I was like, okay, I think I need to back out of this job, like maybe find someone else to come and take over for me. So he called me, it was like 22, and I was like painting, and another friend called me, and she was like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, why don't we just like be on the phone, or else continued painting. And as soon as I hung up, another 22. So 22
Ooh,
has always been like a big number for me. And then this year I just got out of a program that I was a part of. So growing up, I was there like the smart kid in my family. Like both my sisters are geniuses. Like my youngest sister is now going to Queen's Commerce, valedictorian
wow.
of her class, fluent in French. Like yeah, she's really brilliant. I was never that student growing up. So I
Yep.
just left the program again, and I think my parents were kind of like on the edge of like, okay, dude, you got to figure something out. So I was like, I need a fresh start. I need to get my life in order. Like I really want this business to be something that's successful. So I said, you need something that's going to challenge you.
Yeah.
And September 22nd, 2022 was a
There you
day
go.
from
Yeah.
that day leading into the end of the year was going to be exactly 100 days. So I said, okay, perfect. 100 days. Let's set 4 different goals. So the first goal was I'm going to run every single day outside. Doesn't matter what the temperature is. Doesn't matter what the conditions are outside. You're going to get outside. Even if it's to the mailbox and back, you're going to run.
Yeah.
The second one was to make sure that I was sober the entire time. So
Yeah.
no drinking, no alcohol, no weed, nothing.
Yep.
And then
Clear
the other
head.
one, clear head, exactly. The other one was to read 9 books by the end of the year. That one was a little bit ambitious. I didn't
That's
quite like that one.
aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
that was a very aggressive one. I was able to squeeze in, I think, 2 books,
Yeah.
um,
Whatever.
which was good. I think for the entire year, I had read like a total of 9 books, so that was great. I was good with
Yeah.
that. And then the last one was to save, I think it was like 5,000, another really aggressive one.
Yeah.
But the whole mindset of it was that I need to do something that's going to push me, that's going to get me outside of my comfort zone, that's going
Yeah.
to build really good habits. So I didn't quite hit the 100 days, but I think all in all, it came up to 95 days of consecutive going outside running.
Yeah.
Some days were brutal, some days were really good to me. And I think the book that I started reading for my challenge was The Power of Habit. And there's this
Yeah.
thing where it talks about when you set up cues in your mind, your body just automatically wants to do it. So there be days where I'm like, I don't want to run, but there's something in me that's like, you have to run no matter what, because it's
Yeah.
now a part of me, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
As you're having those thoughts of, I don't want to do this today, you're putting your shoes on,
yeah,
and you're like,
yeah,
well, we're doing it. So
yeah, we're doing it. Yeah, we're here.
yeah,
Or even some days where
we'll continue this as we run. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Some days where I'm going up, so I'm like, okay, let's just hit 2K. I'll get to 2K. I'm like, dude, I feel amazing. And I end up
Yeah.
running like 10K that day, which is nuts. But it's like, it just kind of taught me of like, if you say you're going to do something, you set your mind to it. Once you start, you started. So
Yeah.
there's no like looking back. And you're going to find that like once you started, the hardest part was actually starting. Now
Yeah.
you're there, just, keep it going. So yeah, that was what the 100-day challenge was just like setting myself up to like continue like this habit of building good habits. So yeah.
Yeah. Discipline is one of those things that once you get good at it, you now have to start doing ridiculous shit to grow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like hopping in the ice baths, or like I'm starting to do the cold showers in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Just like create your own suck, like,
Yeah.
because like
I,
we're doing it, like, and what you're doing at that point is you're just teaching yourself that when I say we're doing something, we're doing it. Like this isn't
exactly.
up for discussion. And then eventually those conversations that you're having with yourself are gone. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Just because things are whatever. So to kind of like get those conversations back, you need to start being a little silly with it, right?
oh, 100%. And you kind
Yeah.
of almost like, because when you're Bill Smith calls it your inner bitch. When
Your
you're
inner
running,
bitch. Yeah.
yeah, when you're running, you're like, why are you running? Like, stop, this is brutal. Like, don't
Yeah.
do this anymore. Stop. But when you do it for, I remember like it was like 20 runs in. After a while, like my brain was like, dude, you said you're gonna do 2K. Now you're at 2K. Why are you stopping? Why are you being a
Yeah.
little bitch? Like, keep going. So
Yeah.
you almost like flip that inner dialogue from being a
Yeah.
little bitch to being like your motivator, like your,
Yep.
I don't know, the guy that pushes you. So it's like you have to kind of build that in yourself. Like
Yep.
you have to train the voice that's inside of your head to be like, no, we're going at it no matter what, because this is what you set out. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, I let you complain this whole time. Now we're here. Are you actually tired? And then you're like, no. It's I when I get into training at the gym again, it's very much the same, where I get it in my head. I'm gonna wear I'll wear a muscle shirt under a big sweater. And then if I
Mhm.
start feeling self-conscious because I'm heavier at the gym, off comes the sweater. All right, there you go. Now everyone can
Oh,
see. And we're going to finish what
damn.
we're doing. You know what I mean? And anytime that
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I don't think I'm going to finish or maybe, you know, I don't need to, and I start doing that, I add a set, or I'll add 10 push-ups, or I'll, you know, so then you start catching
Yeah.
yourself doing that, and now you're being punished for it. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
but a week into that, you're looking forward to it, right? You're adding shit anyways.
Yeah.
Like you're just like you're saying, it's the 1 year it was weather conditions aren't going to matter, you know, for
Mhm.
X amount of time. And it's like once you're wet, you're wet.
Yeah.
So it's like other than your tools, like that was the thing that I learned that year. Was like, okay, well now my bits are fucked and my knife's
Yeah. Yeah.
fucked,
Yeah.
and you know, you got to
Yeah.
replace it all. But
Trials
yeah,
start to rust.
yeah, right. You got to push
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So when you're doing the sober aspect of it, that's just like a clean head, like no distractions. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I think like especially like going through the pandemic, like I was very fortunate. A buddy of mine when I was away in London, he started a program and he could have went back home. He's from out west. He's from Vancouver, so he was planning on leaving, but his brother was supposed to start the next year, and we were really lucky because his brother's roommates had already signed for the place, and we were like, okay, well, why don't we just move in here? And these are younger guys, so we were able to get a really cheap prices off of them, and it was
Nice.
like bunch of buddies. Like our entire day was just like we would play video games. He had some classes, so he do classes, but sometimes he'd be outside doing classes with us, and you we all have beers and like, you know. But I
Yeah,
think at that time it was very necessary to kind of have that, like, you know, camaraderie and like have that ability to kind of escape and not deal with what's happening in the real world. So I think that was really helpful to kind of have that. But like I think a lot of people had built habits of like, okay, now anytime something is stressful, I need to pick up a drink. You know, anytime like I need to relax, I need to like smoke some weed or whatever. So I think
yeah,
for me it was like, no, you're gonna feel this uncomfortableness that you're feeling or this escaping that you want to go through and find healthier ways to go about it so that it's like
yeah,
not a dependency thing, you know. So I think that was like my main thought of like just like clear head, sober mind, so I can actually make rational decisions and like I'm not using the alcohol as a way to like, you know, run away from things that are hard to deal with. I, you know, have to take that responsibility and like own whatever it is that I need to get done. So that was like the main mindset. And I think it was already around the time that, you know, sober October, sober November, whatever months those were. So I was
yeah.
like, okay, well, I'm gonna have to do it at least once this month. So or at once this like period of like the 100 days. So
Hmm.
I might as well do it for the entire 100, you know, add
Oh,
that
yeah,
to the challenge. So something more difficult to do, right? So yeah,
yeah.
I'm happy I did it.
There's a lot of clarity that comes from it,
Hundred
especially
percent.
afterwards. About the first week of sober October, I'll be like, you know, I'll go grab a sandwich or something somewhere and go, yeah, maybe I'll have a beer. And I'll go, oh, we're not going to have a beer. Like
Mm,
it's just habit where you would do whatever. But by
exactly.
like week 3 or by the end of it, it's so far from your mind.
Yeah.
You know, you almost go a month without thinking about it anyways, and then a buddy will call or something, and you're like, yeah, it's not, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just we weren't doing it for a month, and you know, what it is what it is. But
Yeah.
you really do kind of tighten up. Um, eh, like things just become more focused. It's like you're saying, you almost become accountable more
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like this is what I'm feeling, this is why I'm feeling like it. um
You can
I
you can
always,
trace you can kind of trace like what the root cause of it. What is it that you're
yeah,
neglecting that you need to get done, right? So
exactly, yeah,
yeah.
because when you're doing things like drinking and that whole kind of side of things, it's not even that you're looking to, you know, where is this coming from, you're like, I got an excuse, right?
Yeah.
Let's have a few beers.
Yeah.
um
It's like,
yeah,
hey, you forgot to do this, but your mind's like, dude, you're drinking right now. Shut up.
yeah, no, it's
like
totally
we're
fine.
totally vibing, right?
That is what alcohol does. That's why it's so popular. Is your like give a shit meter, it just gets turned right off. So that's why
100%.
people do dangerous shit when they're drunk too, because they're not concerned about it, right?
100%.
Um, so when I started kind of like pushing and pushing and pushing 2 years ago with the company, I started getting emotional about things like when we were missing deadlines, or I had, you know, two places to be at once and I had to pick one. And
Yeah.
then I started implementing this: feel your feelings as much to 100 as you want, but you've got 5 minutes. So
Yes.
if that means you want to kick and scream and roll around on the ground, or you want to have a big cry, or, you know, you just want to like, for five,
Yeah.
go ahead. These are
Yeah.
your 4 minutes and 58 seconds. Uh,
100%.
and then when that 5 minutes is over, You make a decision as to, is this going to ruin my life? No. Which side are we taking here? Because we're not revisiting this. Um,
100%.
and it really helps.
100%.
Yeah, that whole like be a man and don't like all that kind of shit when we were growing up. And I wish there was somebody that was just going, you need to feel this as hard as you can for 5 minutes or whatever time that it is, and then get over it.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of more of that be a man thing is, it's over or
Yeah.
whatever. It cannot be changed. Figure out how you feel about it and get over it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think back in the day it was more a suppression thing, right? It's
yeah,
like you're upset about something, don't cry. You're not supposed to cry. But it's like, sometimes you really do need to cry. You need to let that
totally.
emotion out of you. That way you're not holding on to it. You can now have a clear mind of like, okay, I was crying because this made me feel this way, or like, what am I truly feeling here? Is it because, I something is not happening the way I want it to, or am I frustrated because I don't know what I need to be doing?
Yeah,
Okay, I don't know what I need to be doing. Maybe I need to contact someone that actually knows what they need, so they can walk me through it. I think that's like the biggest thing of being a man. It's like,
yeah,
okay, I know this emotion's happening. I can handle it because I'm allowing it to pass through. But now that it's passed through, here's decision time. That's the biggest thing, right? Like
yeah.
it's the decisions that you make, right? So it's like, okay, now that's done and over with. How are we gonna move forward? Because you're gonna have to move forward regardless. You can't stay put, right?
Yeah.
Got to make a decision, get the ball rolling because things
Well,
have to happen, right?
or you can, and you can stay there for the rest of your life. And that's absolute torture, right? Yeah,
That
it really is making that decision and then living with it. And sometimes you fuck that decision up and you got to live with that too, right?
that's
Like
part of
that
it. Yeah.
that was not the right decision.
Yeah.
And then
100%.
next time, you know not to do it again, or you fucking do it again and you're back to the same place. You go, okay, but next time
Yeah.
we're not gonna do this a third time. Um
100%.
yeah, I feel like we had this enormous generation of men that went to war and they came back seeing war, and
Yeah.
that phrase, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you.
I've
So
never heard that one.
okay, so basically what that means is you got a girl that gets her nails done every day and is living a life that she's just never seen any adversity at all. And she
Mhm.
chips a nail and goes ballistic because that's the worst thing that's ever happened to her. And then you've got another woman that's been through a terrible life, terrible relationship, terrible family life, has been homeless, like all these types of things. Her her perspective of the worst thing that's ever happened to her is
Mhm.
very different than the first
Right.
person. But on the
Right.
same resonance, the worst is the worst,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I
So
got you.
so I think that's something that this generation of men that came back, they were like, none of these are not there are no problems here that are worth crying about, period. Go to
Right.
war and then come
Right.
back.
Right.
And the funny thing about that, like I know guys that have gone to war and they've come back. A good friend of the family when I was growing up came back in a wheelchair. It's
Oh
it's
wow.
rough,
Wow.
when those kind of guys get alone, they get emotional, but
Yeah.
I don't think that generation was, I don't know if they weren't happy about it or whatever, but that got pushed onto a whole generation of men, of like, men don't cry, men don't
Yeah.
bitch about things, they just do it, you know what I mean? Eat
What
the
is it? What
moldy
is it?
bread.
Yeah.
you know
Soft times create weak men and all that. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, 100%. I totally agree with what you're saying. I feel like but now there's this like I would 100% agree that we are in like kind of soft times. So as men, we kind
Yeah.
of have to, lift each other up, but then also to
Hmm.
understand what it is to be a man. And I think that's all being redefined as the days go on. So like, I was really, really, really appreciative of like being able to contact you and like reach out and be like, hey,
Oh,
like
totally.
I'm struggling with this, like this wall that I'm doing. And in the past, I've always been of this mindset of like, okay, you're a man, figure it out, And
Yeah.
at this point where I was like, now I'm in a client's house is not something that I'm gonna have to
Mm.
live with. I'm gonna have to live with it because it's something that I'm putting my name on. But like, if I don't know what I'm doing, I need to be okay with like reaching out and like finding good mentors like yourself, right? So
I,
I think
I,
that's something that we're tasked with now as men, is just being good examples to like the younger generation coming up of like, hey, this is what it means to work hard. This is what it means to, allow your emotions to happen. And but at the end of the day, still taking responsibility for the things that you have to get done, right? So
I fully agree with that. And then showing the new generation of kids too that like when you are lost, go find someone that's walked that path and have a conversation with them. And
100%.
like, I don't think I'll ever be in a place in my life where somebody comes to me with a problem that I've lived through, asks for an opinion,
Mhm.
and I'll say no. I never tell people what to do. I'll tell them what I did, how the experience went when I did it, what I would do again if I was faced with it, things
Yeah.
like that. Telling people what to do, it just opens up a gateway for them to go, well, I listened to him and he's the
Yeah.
one that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um but I think like that's essentially what this podcast is for, is just pushing that community out a little bit further, like we're all here, right?
Yeah.
And there is kind of that like one of the hashtags I use is that blue collar brotherhood, right? And but it is
Yeah.
brother
Yeah. Yeah.
sisterhood there,
100%.
all of us.
Yes. Yeah.
um
100%.
and it takes
I would
five
say
minutes
I would say growing up, like, so my dad's not really handy. He
Yeah,
loves to do this thing with the, what do you call them? The nail holders where you put them, or the screw holders where you put them on
yeah,
the wall before fastening the screws in. He loves to put the glue on that before putting it into the wall because he says it holds it better.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
But some of my best, like I would say growing up, some of my best mentors have always been like, my mom always tried to get me in with like gentlemen that she knew were like really handy, because like
Hmm.
growing up I've always been the guy in the house that like loved to put stuff together. All the IKEA furniture that came through the house, like
Yeah.
it wasn't even a case of like, Josh, go do this. It was like, ooh, a puzzle. I need to do
Ooh.
this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
These things suck to put together, and then
Yeah.
and then you go do it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So like I've always really appreciated, and I feel like blue collar people are probably the best teachers out there because they're very systematic in the way they do things, and I feel like we're good at foreseeing what the issues are and why maybe one way of you doing it is not going to work out.
Yeah.
And the funny part is like you'll find someone that's blue collar that's teaching you something, and sometimes will kind of sit back and let you go through that mistake because they've probably gone through it themselves, and
Yeah.
it's a bigger way to learn something than dumb saying do this, do that. It's more like I'll watch you kind of fuck up here, but at the end of
Mm.
the day, like I'm still gonna like give you the really good instruction on how to like get it done, I guess.
So when I'm teaching, at least when I was in the position where I was teaching on a regular basis, it was like, um, you have to let people fail, and because those failures are good for you as long as they're supervised. Like you're not
Yeah,
going to throw somebody to the wolves and really let them hurt themselves. But you do need them to feel that pressure, feel that feeling in your stomach. Oh, do I lie about this? Do I, you know what I mean?
yeah,
And come to terms with the fact that you fuck something up and you can't figure it out. You know what I mean? And those things are fine. About the third time that guys will come with their tail between their legs, you got to tell them like, listen, I'm doing this on purpose. Like you get that, right?
yeah,
If you're not failing once a week, you're not even fucking trying.
yeah,
Right. This is how we're growing.
yeah.
And then on the other hand, when you see somebody who's walking down the path of failure where they're not going to learn anything from it, it's just going to suck, you speak
Mm,
up.
yeah,
Where you're just like, yeah, that one sucks. And there's no gold at the end of that one. It just
yeah,
sucks,
yeah, yeah,
Um,
100%. Did
yeah,
you, for yourself, when you were coming into like the trades, did you have anyone that you were like kind of like looking up at that was like your mentor, your teacher?
no. So I'll tell you how I started getting jobs. I would double the material cost.
Oh,
Okay. So that means for a $20 box of mud, I would applicate it and sand it off and all that shit for $20.
oh my God.
It was brutal. But I fucked a lot of things up. But
Yeah,
people that want to be that cheap, they have to know what's coming.
right.
Right. And I would stand there and go, okay, that didn't work out as planned. I will fix it, you
Hmm.
know. Unfortunately, you'll have to buy another box of mud, and
Uh,
unfortunately, I got to charge you for that. But it's,
oh my
we're at
gosh.
$40 here.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's essentially how I got started doing side work, getting more handy. Now, the guy that taught me frame board tape was amazing. He was rough around the edges. He was real hard on everybody, but
What's frame board tape?
oh, like
I don't know.
framing, boarding, and taping.
Okay,
Like,
gotcha.
so I worked for a drywall acoustic company out of town. So we would do Monday to the following Friday 12s.
Okay.
So you would show up and they would make sure that you weren't like eating crayons. And if you weren't, they would go, okay, here's a room, go board it. And then if you were doing that and it looked like you weren't fucking that up, every once in a while they'd grab a couple of guys and go, okay, we're going to teach you how to frame.
Okay.
And then instead of walking into a room that's been framed to start boarding it, you would go to the track that's on the ground because he would lay it out. You
Yeah.
would frame it, then board it.
Oh, okay,
And
gotcha.
then when you got good at that, it got really fun because now you're doing cool bulkheads. You're like doing all the exterior work.
Hmm.
Um, I went from that to going, I think I want to start doing some stuff on my own. It's there's also a point where guys that are really good at teaching you things, there was this feast or famine that was going on before,
Hmm.
where if I teach you everything I know, you don't need me anymore. And
Right.
now you're a threat to my job, right? That's kind
Yeah.
of the way that everybody was looking.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough in my career that that's how it was back then because it forced me out where,
Gotcha.
if I'm not going to learn anything more here, I got to go.
Gotcha.
Um, and there were other paths that you wanted to look down where, maybe I'll go do that. Uh, those paths you couldn't fuck around. You had to be there every day. You had to have the correct tools. Like there was a little bit more focus and a little bit more focus that was needed.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a couple of times that I was told like, this isn't for you, man. Like
Wow.
I would be like, listen, I know that I can do this.
Wow.
And every once in a while you would say that you've done something before and you hadn't.
You have it? Yeah. I know. Yeah, I know those ones.
So I mean, every once in a while, somebody would be like, "I don't fucking think you've ever done this before," because
Yeah.
it's and at that point you have to be humble enough to be like, "Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and I'll fix it for free, and we'll part ways, or I'll just leave, or whatever you need." But usually those things ended positively.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I took a foreman position at a high-rise building, never being a foreman
Jesus.
before. I just knew how to read
Jeez.
prints and I knew how to
Yeah.
build walls. And the guy was like, "You've been a foreman before?" Oh yeah, yep.
Yeah.
I went and got a business name, and I think he was paying me $25 an hour or something to run a crew as a foreman,
Jesus.
but I had no idea because I'd never been there before. So he's probably getting me at a third of the price or two-thirds of the price that he should have been, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How'd that turn out?
Not good.
The job
And
didn't go
like
well?
my end of it was really well.
Okay,
I
perfect.
understood. Um, when I'm in a group of people, I pretty quickly become the leader, and it's not intentional.
Hmm.
It's just I'm confident about the things that I'm confident about, and when I'm not, I ask the questions.
Yeah.
Like I have the balls to ask the questions.
Yeah. And you're
What,
organized.
and I'm super organized if I'm the leader.
Yeah.
So that aspect of like running things, I was good.
Hmm.
The aspect of like looking at things and going, I think that's wrong, and then checking it or calling people out, I was good at. We got about a month into this place and the guy stopped paying us.
What?
So he had his family working and doing the framing and that kind of stuff, piecework. Everybody on site was supposed to be piecework, and he was paying me hourly. So there was no money.
Wow.
There was no money for me. But if we were
Wow.
ahead of schedule, you know what I mean? That you would
Yeah.
on a high-rise building. My assumption is you finish the first floor, they pay you for the first floor. You finish the
Yeah.
second floor, and then when you
Yeah. Yeah.
finish
Yeah.
boarding the first floor, you get and so on and so forth. I think either he was putting the money in his pocket or he just got behind as like the leader.
Wow.
But everyone on his end, his family, they
got
were all
paid.
being paid. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, I let him
Of
get
course.
2 weeks into me, and he was like, yeah, um, just one more week, and I was like, no, no, and you can keep that, and thanks for the fucking lesson. Yeah,
Hey,
I
but
reached
like,
out a few times to ask, but I knew I was never. When you leave someone and fuck them over, they're not paying you now.
yeah, 100%. But I mean,
Yeah,
at the end of the day, you still got the experience that you needed, right? Like,
totally.
yeah, it's what got you
Uh,
here, right?
and that's my dad has always been the guy that I can go to when I'm got kicked in the nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And he'll sit there with me and go, okay, so it's bad. What isn't bad about it? And then we'll walk through it like that. And a lot of these things where I've been, kind of fucked over in the end, it's like, okay, so what? You gave him 2 grand and you wasted 2 weeks of your life. Chalk that up to schooling. People
yeah,
go to school for 4 years,
yeah,
and it's comments like that where you're like, okay, all right, no, I get it.
yeah. Gives
You
you
know,
perspective almost, right? Yeah,
totally.
yeah,
No, nobody got
gotcha.
hurt. Everybody's healthy. There's lots of work
Gotcha.
out there. Suck it up.
What would you say your biggest fuck up job was, or less, or job that you've learned the most from mistakes that you've made?
Okay, so I got one for both.
Okay.
The one I learned the most from was the most recent place that I worked before I started the company.
Mhm.
I got headhunted in. This guy, I had just left a site super position,
Mm,
and I knew I didn't like it because I wasn't on the tools anymore. I was just watching everybody else fuck everything up.
gotcha.
You know what? Let's take a break and I'll start that because we got about a minute left here, and
Okay.
and, and
Okay.
we'll start that when we get back.
All right. Sounds good.